Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bill. This is going to be a Darksun campaign update. We just gamed yesterday. We continued in the town exploring one of the city-states of Darksun. Tier, I think. Ort. Let me back up. The party, I don't remember who in the party. I think it was it was two of the players came up with the idea of checking for any job boards. So we start looking through the town, see if there's any job boards. We come up with a couple of interesting jobs that we could take in town, because we're going to stay in town for a few days. Hoya and Ort went to, or at least Hoya did, went to go purchase a cover for the wagon, or I mean cart, that we had that we're using for trading. And we then also got us a couple of medieval tents. You would think of them more as ones that have long poles that they stand up straight and that they're like a can, a cylinder. We get a couple of those. And we load the poles in the cart for transport. We rolled up one of the tents and we put it into a bag of holding, and we rolled up another and added it to somebody's backpack. We still have the canvas as well that we were using as makeshift tents previously, so we will have extra material. Well, we end up finding a very faded job on one of the boards and another job that interested us. The faded job talks about the tower that we're trying to find. So we go and we investigate that. We're investigating both jobs, and we divided it up between 2 different days. So we go to investigate this one. There's an old man sitting at a very clean desk. We startle him as we enter, and most of the players' characters notice that everything is completely covered in dust except for where he's sitting. And then Ort doesn't pay too much attention to all those details. He's the one with them. Hoya's at the bar, just flirting and gambling. So the old man talks about what the job's about, talks about where the tower is. We actually see a map in the room of where the tower is, so we'll go and add that to our merchant map that Hoya has later, because now we at least know where the tower is, which we did not know at all before. So we'll take that information with us. One of the characters, Ort politely refused to do the work for the guy at the moment, but he is willing to come back if situations change to go work for this guy. And I was thinking, as a player, we could take this opportunity to join those forces to get to the tower, and then even if we'd have to earn a little bit of renown there defending against one of the many things that attack that tower, we could work our way in and then play with the device eventually that could destroy the world. That was my thoughts as a player. So Ort would think a little bit about that because he is a military guy. It's just when he gets in battle, he wouldn't be that cautious. From there, the archer is very confused why there's no footprints except for ours in this place. Ort leaves to the outside and waits on the party. The rest of the players are watching what's going on. But the archer's being polite and talking about all the good we could bring him, and so on and so forth, just to get close to him. And then he touches the guy on the shoulder and pretty much starts a whole harassment incident with him. But he notices that there's no footprints whatsoever anywhere around there. So that's interesting. From there, we leave. What's left of the party was warned by the old man to not let him come in next time they visit. Not let the archer. We leave, we go back, we hang out at the bar. The archer goes and finds a lady friend to spend the night with. And then after that, Hoya did her gambling, and then she's hanging out with the party, just drinking. And Ort is enjoying the drinking and watching the bouncers work their magic at the bar. And then comparing their martial abilities in the situation with what he could do. And the more and more he got drunk, the more and more bad his perception of their abilities to fight was, which was hilarious. From there, we spend the night, we get up in the morning, have our breakfast, and gather ourselves together, and we go check out the other job that we had off the job board. And that one was a Paylor temple. The game master's using gods that are more familiar to us players, and we played 3rd edition D&D all in high school. So we are very familiar with the 3rd edition D&D gods. I am a little familiar with the Pathfinder deities, but usually only the ones I've used. The Pathfinder, the way the game's built compared to, say, 3rd edition D&D, it doesn't feel like the gods are as prevalent in the core rulebook to begin with, to even know what they are, how they are treated, and everything else. I believe in the I believe there was a section in the 3rd edition player's handbook where you were making your characters' descriptions, how tall they were, how heavy they were, randomizing some of that, maybe their age, and getting age penalties and benefits. There was also a description of each of the gods and what they stood for, what their clergymen dressed like. I mean, it wasn't a big one, but it was enough that you didn't need a book of the gods, because in the cleric class, you had all the gods and their domains, what their weapons were, what their alignments were, so on and so forth. So you could compare the two together, just reading the book back and back, and you would know what the gods were of the world, just baked into the setting. And Pathfinder just doesn't feel that way. Now, their made adventures feel more that way than their just books. So, after my long-winded digression, sorry, we will get back to what was going on. He uses Paylor as the representative god for us to have a mental picture. We go to a big round building, and it has an oculus in the roof. So when we're let in to talk to the clergyman about what's going on, what the job is, what the job pays, we're just getting baked to death in the sun. The sun's coming in through the oculus and illuminating the floor. But the job consists of a protector of their goods, or a protector of their holy site that's underneath the floor in their labyrinth, has went rogue and started viciously killing any of the clergy that are down there. They've had this been going on for I want to say it's been a couple months, but I could be wrong. I'm sure somebody from the party or the game master will correct it in the comments below. And they've sent down 7 or 8 groups so far, and only 2 have ever come back. The first group that came back, 2 or 3 ever came back. I think 2. And the first group that came back, only 3 of them returned. The last group that went in that returned, the majority of them returned, but they only went down for about 15 minutes. They saw a guy being filleted open alive, entrails being scattered across the walls and the ceiling, just pulled out and tacked into place. And they lost their nerve and retreated. We're, in a general sense, we're better equipped equipment-wise, not even going into magic, equipment-wise, than what I would assume most of the groups that have ventured down in here have been equipped. My example is Ort wears actual breastplate, so he's wearing iron metal breastplate. And we haven't seen a whole lot of that. The most we've seen is a little bit of bronze or brass as far as the metals go. Normally we see sticks, bones, rocks, and copper and brass weapons and bronze weapons. So we get information that we could get paid. The original job offer was 600 bone chips each. And since we're here accepting the mission, or at least getting the information, they're like, since we've had so many failures go down there, we'll up it to 1,200 bone chips each. And I'm like, okay, it's reasonable. There's a lot of us, so they get to keep more of their money the less of us return to the surface. I'm not expecting us to lose a party member offhand before we enter, but anything's possible. We accept, and then I negotiate a little bit further on also acquiring. I wanted 12 flasks of holy water because it sounded like undead we were dealing with. He ends up giving us 6 because that's all he had. The majority of their resources are in that labyrinth. There's in their protected vault. That's now even protected from them. So we leave there for the day because we said we would return in the morning. We're going to go get whatever supplies we want, a bunch of torches, and a few other things, food, in case we need a hole up there for a couple days. I got a couple days worth of rations, okay, and I was thinking in case we get turned around, separated, or we need a hole up there and heal and survive for a day or two just in the underground, not even fighting. So we get what we think we need. We have another relaxing evening. The archer does not get to see his lady friend this evening. Hoya spends her time gambling a little bit, and then her time with the party drinking. She lost money this time where she won money last time. So following morning comes around. We go to the Paylor temple. They open up a grate that's in the floor, and then we get to go down it. Stairs that descend down, about a 15-foot wide stairway that goes down. The ceiling, though, is only 10 foot high, so Ort is now handicapped on using his weapon, his main weapon. So instead of taking the -4 penalty for fighting with my big sword in a narrow space, I switch over to my Morning Star as my weapon that I have at the ready on me right now. If we can get into a big room, a room with a high ceiling, a room with really wide walls, I could pull the sword out and attempt to wield it. But until then, I'm stuck with this Morning Star that does only a couple dice damage total compared to my sword that was doing almost 5 dice damage. And by dice, I mean d6s. So that's the situation Ort is fighting-wise. Now we set up our marching order to be cautious, which is not always how we actually do things. So it's very interesting on how we set this up. Ort and the archer are together. The archer doesn't have to worry about being too quiet. Ort's in breastplate, so he's moving slower to try to be silently, but he's not rolling move silently checks. So we're moving about half speed. We have the dwarf, which I think was the monk, and one of the players can correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong. He is in the lead. He's at the edge of my dark vision, or just past the edge of my dark vision, so that I could come up there. If I see him stop because he enters my vision, then I can stop and not continue to move. And we use this marching order for the dark vision guys to be in the lead. The light source is behind Ort with the other group, and they're either 15 feet away, or if the elf's holding light source, they're like 20 to 30 feet away, however the low light vision works. I'm not playing an elf at the moment, so I don't have the distance of the torch written down and memorized. We take our time as we go down and we start exploring. We find within the first intersection of the corridors in this maze, this labyrinth, we find the filleted, emboweled person with blood all over the floor. And that starts our adventure through this labyrinth. As we dive deeper in, we start going down other corridors. And Ort's taking charcoal from some of the fires we've had. He's kept some of the coal bits after they've gotten really cold. And now he has black charcoal he can use to mark the wall or chalk the wall. So we're marking the left walls every time we make a choice down a corridor, so that way we know we've been that way, or which direction we came from as well. And we start making our way from intersection to intersection to intersection. The first intersection after the filleted guy had 2 other choices to go down. One led to a flooded corridor, and the water was steel as could be and cold. And we decided not to venture through the water, which overall, given what we're trying to do right now, I think was an okay decision. He backtracks and then goes down a different corridor. The monk's trying to do all the rogue scouting right now with his stealth and the fact that he has dark vision. So I'm letting him do that as much as possible, and just standing in one spot as he goes from one corridor to another until he either motions that he needs help, I hear sounds of combat, or I see evidence of combat. So that's the situation as we're approaching. But as we come to each of these intersections, we start to hear echoing, and we heard this at the first intersection, echoing screams of someone dying. And it's a different voice every time. And we're getting closer, and the screams are getting shorter. Like, we're not hearing the long echoes anymore. They're getting shorter and louder as we are making our progress from one intersection to another, until eventually we come to a 3-way intersection, a 3-pronged forward intersection. And 2 of the corridors, the floors are soaked with blood. we find dead bodies there. He described them, the game master described them pretty well. I just don't remember what they were offhand. And we started asking questions, what armor were they wearing and stuff like that, as we were trying to figure out if these were all the different warriors that were down here and they've kept them and started killing them slowly, or if this was people left over from the clergy that were down here originally. And some of the intersections where we found dead bodies, they've been dead for days. Other places, they have just been recently killed. So we start looking around and we pick one of the corridors with blood. And at this point, I realized that we probably need to start wiping our feet from the blood after we get through the blood. But Ort would be the one to interact with it first, so I rolled Ort's wisdom and got like a 6. So I was like, well, he's not going to think of that right now. So I don't mention it to the party for us to take advantage of, to kind of not leave a big trail. We continue down that corridor and we come to another intersection. I don't remember exactly how I described it. I think it was a 4-way intersection with the walls to the left and the right curving, but I could be wrong. It could just been one side curving. And we see a male that's been impaled on a meat hook, who's barely breathing, or at least who's the monk thinks he's barely breathing. We see a female impaled on a meat hook, and she's dead. And we see the most recent kill, which is a child, or I want to think it's a halfling, but it could be a child impaled on a meat hook. And we hear the footfalls going up the corridor, and we can see a little bit of the blood from their hooves. And we think it's hooves. So based on everything we're getting, we're thinking it's minotaurs now. But the descriptions we had earlier, we were thinking we were dealing with some undead like ghouls and ghasts and whatnot. So we head after that. The monk heads quickly after the footfalls, and then he hears them go down 2 different corridors. So at this point, we've come to the conclusion there's 2 of them. And I'm like, oh joy. The rest of the party gets closer to Ort, and Ort starts moving a little bit faster to try to catch up to the monk. He's not trying to be silent anymore. And then one of the footfalls that's moving away from the monk ends up going behind us, and that's where the game ended yesterday. We didn't even have combat yesterday, but we got a lot of interesting things accomplished, and I had a lot to tell you guys description-wise, because it was a very, very good paced description of us exploring. Hopefully you all enjoyed this recap. I'll try to remember not to ramble too much on 3rd edition stuff in all my videos, but it was the edition that I loved the best. If I could have the 3rd edition spells in Pathfinder, which there's no reason why I can't transport it in, but if I could have that in Pathfinder, I would, because a lot of those spells were just better. Healed you all the way. Ray of Disintegrated gave your target a save only if you hit them with the ray. You hit them with the ray, they get a save. If they failed the save, they died. They didn't take damage, they died. If they made the save, they took whatever making the save damage-wise is now, is about the same that it always has been. And if that dropped them to 0, they died. So, harm dropped you down to a D4 hit points. Healed you all the way and recovered your ability damages and stuff. So, it was just a lot more potent. Well, hopefully you all enjoyed the recap. Let me know in the comments below. Share this with people that you think would enjoy it. Until we all game again, guys.